phone?
Yeah, she like that. I think that's her
We
like signature item.
we have a
Yes, and the
microphone,
signature item. Yeah.
but it wasn't picking up the three of us.
Right.
Right.
So we got these.
I'm trying
Luckily,
to think what falls into like geek, something that's geeky.
Okay. We're geeky. All right, we're episode from the NAFA 2023 Baltimore showroom floor. We're here with Mike Kamnetter, a repeat guest to our podcast from General Mills, Fleet Services Manager. Mike, welcome back.
Yes, thank you. Good to be back with you guys.
Thank
I'm
you,
glad you guys are here at NAFA. This is great. So
Thanks
a lot
for
of energy.
spending the time with us. And might we say that Mike is the
President of
president
NAFA.
of NAFA?
Yes, thank
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Thank
And
you.
actually, we're
Thanks
going to push
for
you a little
all your
bit on
work
that
with
and
that.
say,
Okay.
hey, what's NAFA doing and,
Okay.
and what's NAFA's focus on safety?
Yes.
So we'll get there in a minute.
Yes. Okay, great.
But what you were on our part 3 of developing a safety policy, and you had a really good program of how you did that. So talk a little bit more. How is safety important to you in your organization?
Well, I mean, at General Mills, I mean, obviously our employees are like one of our biggest assets, right? I mean,
absolutely.
so I mean, we tend to go hire the best people we can find in the role, and we want to protect them. We want them to be safe. However, as we all know, with being fleet managers, that's not always the case, you know. So, and on my last episode, I kind of talked about just changing that fleet policy, and I think all of us, when we try to make things a little stricter or tighter, we get a lot of resistance from our organizations, like, ooh, is that going to be too strict? Is that going to like turn away good talent, and so forth. And it's always that struggle to get there. It's like, and I know ultimately the goal is I'd love to have a telematics device in every vehicle where I could actually know how people are driving and where they're driving 24/7, and obviously when you're a large company, you're our target, as well.
Absolutely.
So so it's not only just, we care about our employees, but we also care about the communities that we operate in as well. I mean, we're a family brand of cereals and everything else. And, we're definitely concerned about, we want our drivers to be safe and be respectful in the communities that they're in, but that doesn't always happen, from time to time.
Exactly.
So it's always a challenge I'm always trying to push the envelope to what can we put in place? How, I want safe drivers, and we have a pretty safe fleet, believe it or not. So,
No, that's awesome.
So I had a driver complain, I think your policy's a little too tight. And I'm like, well, if it was really that, then we'd have a lot of people who would be in a high risk category, and we don't. So
Exactly.
I mean, so that's a good sign as well. And our goal really isn't to take people out of cars and move them off the program. It's to change their behavior. Some people, they drive a certain way because that's how they've always driven, or they have an aggressive personality. I mean, my most of my fleet drivers are salespeople. I mean, their job is to go out and sell things.
Right.
They're going to be aggressive individuals.
So they're type A personalities.
Yes.
Like, so what I always say, if you can take a type A and you can turn them towards safety, you now have a type A promoting safety, and that's a really good thing.
Yes. It is. It's really hard. It's really hard to convert all of those people, but we try. We try with policy. We try just in everything that we do to try to get those individuals. And when somebody's like on the edge, I tell them, hey, I don't want to take your car away from you, but I want you to drive safe. And if it takes me threatening to take your car away from you to get you to like, okay, I need to slow down, I need to be careful, then that's, at the end of the day, that's what we do.
The company I work for, we have our safety policy. We do all of the same things. And we tell the drivers, this is to make sure that you don't raise in risk level. We want to keep you here. We want to keep you in a vehicle. We want to make you a better driver. So that's 100% the focus of what we do, right? So it's not to get rid of drivers or fire them or do whatever. It's to make them better. So I really appreciate that. Let's switch to NAFA. So you're president of NAFA. Yeah. We're both on the board of directors. That's awesome.
It's honored to have you on the board. Yeah.
Oh yeah. No, it's awesome. And so Phil and I, we've talked to Bill. We've had Bill, CEO of NAFA, on our podcast talking about the regions. But we also kind of pushed a little bit. NAFA, the largest fleet association. What is NAFA doing to support the safety of the drivers?
So, I mean, several years ago, and I honestly, I think we've been derailed on a lot of things over the last couple of years with COVID and EV and the autonomous vehicles. Remember that? Like, we're supposed to have self-driving cars by now.
Everybody's self-driving right now.
Right.
Right.
I'm not seeing any self-driving. I mean, I know there's some, but they're not here yet.
Not to the level we need to be.
So I really wish that safety was such a hot pressing topic like EVs and some of the other things have been. I mean, several years ago we had our NAFA members take a pledge to not to talk on their cell phones and drive. And I mean that's been a big push of ours. But really, as NAFA, our goal is really educating our fleet professionals in this business so that they understand, because they're managing their programs in their organizations or their cities or counties, wherever whatever it is that they work. And we want to arm them with the information on how to write a good policy and what's examples of a good policy, what other people are doing. And
Right.
when I come to shows like this, one of the things that NAFA encourages is just networking with peers.
Yes.
And so when we sit down, even a show like this, I'm sure we'll learn something from each other just sitting here.
Absolutely.
But you learn, well, what are you doing? What happens when this happens in your fleet? How do you handle it? And we all take that information back to our organizations and try to implement that and move the needle as much as we possibly can. And we all run into resistance. But NAFA is really concerned about the fleet management profession. And that's really what our goal is, to focus on. How do we arm and educate and provide, knowledge to our fleet professionals and so that they can be successful, because their organizations often look to us as fleet professionals to say, what do we do? Like, what does this look like? I mean, I have a really great safety team back at the office, but 95% of what they work on is plant safety and worker safety in plants.
It's
and
always
they're
the
good.
forgotten side of safety.
Yeah, they're really good.
Yep.
They're really good at that. But when things happen with automobiles, they're like, Mike, what do we do there?
And Mike, that's one of the things that I've said often. I said earlier today is that it's forgotten side of safety, quite often driver safety, but yet it's the greatest exposure that most employers have is to injury or death are the people who drive for their organization.
Yep.
So the fleet managers need to be aware of that. And Bob always makes a comment that, they say, well, I'm the fleet manager, so I really don't take care of that. Well, who's going to? If it's not your job, make it your job.
Yep.
And Bob says that all the time, and I just couldn't agree more with that. And get other, business partners or coworkers to help you with that, and get the other departments involved.
Yeah. Yeah. Luckily, my role in fleet today, I mean, we own the fleet policy. So if someone's outside of the policy, we can remove them from the vehicle, even though there might be objections. But
that's not the goal, as you said.
But sometimes you have to, even if they're a great driver, probably not a great driver, but a great salesperson,
right?
And they do other things really great. They just may not drive that well,
right?
And so and I never let one of those things go, because you really can't. It's our responsibility.
Too much risk to the organization.
Absolutely.
But also back to the driver, right?
Yes.
We want to keep that driver safe. If they're not a good driver behind the wheel, maybe they shouldn't be driving for the company.
And that's what comes down to that accountability, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And when you look at, some roles, they're in sales or they do this, but if you really look at their day, 75% of their day, what are they doing? They're driving. So, yes, they may be good at these other things, but they have to also be good at driving. But that's a core part. And we all kind of take that for granted, because we got a driver's license.
I know how to drive.
I've been driving for 40 years,
Right.
But you have to look at it that way. And I used to have that argument in the former organizations that I worked with all the time. They're like, this guy's our top guy. It doesn't matter.
We can't lose this person.
Right. But I'm like, yeah, but he drives all day and he has struggles with driving. And so,
And at what point does that person become a financial liability to your organization as well? They're going to have to make a lot of sales to make up for that litigation that's coming against your company. Plus, the lost time and the vehicles that are damaged or have to be totally, replaced. At what point does that bad driver, good salesperson become that liability?
And what we did when I was at Standard, we kind of played a little, we to kind of put some perspective behind it. We're like, if you get in one incident and it costs the company $10,000 as a direct expense, how much coffee and products do you have to sell to make up for that? So when we were doing a video on that, we were standing in front of a pallet of coffee, but it actually took like 8 pallets of coffee for us to sell for that. And people were like, ooh, like that. I'm like, yes, that's because it's a direct expense, and when we all sell products in our companies, we have, profit margins and so forth, and they're small or a lot. It depends on what we sell. But, it's not, it's just 10 grand. No, it's 10 grand at the bottom line. So, and 10 grand in these days is not that much, because if you look at all the vehicles that we have and all the sensors and components on it, you can get to 10 grand.
A headlight is over $1,000.
Oh yeah,
the whole headlight
crazy
replacement.
Windshield replacement.
Oh my God, they're over
$1,000.
And then all the recalibration you have to do, and it used to be like a $300 windshield, and it's like now you pay somebody $300 to recalibrate the safety systems and so forth. And so, but that's just the sheet metal part of it. The other part is the other people that we impact, and it's like the tip of the iceberg. When you look at it that way,
there are so many, the ripple effect, and if somebody's injured. Yeah, it's
So, as typical for all of our podcasts, we always go over. This is supposed to be a 5-minute podcast. We're at 10 minutes.
Yeah, of course.
So good for us. I
Hey,
love
he
it.
covered two things though, what he's doing with this organization and NAFA.
And
so
NAFA.
Yeah.
So split
it's,
it up.
it's
Yep.
justifiable, Bob.
Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yeah.
But it just proves that safety should be discussed, and it's
Yes.
always a good topic and always something that people can talk about. Love what you're doing with your
Thanks,
organization.
Bob.
Let's do more at NAFA as far as training and keeping our fleet managers safe and their drivers safe. Thank you so much for being on talking about
Thanks
both.
for having me.
Yeah, and I really appreciate
Appreciate
it.
All
your
right,
time.
guys.
Thank
Thanks
you,
a lot. Take
As
care.
a tradition for the last 2 days, we've been fist bumping out. So
All right.
we'll fist bump
All
out.
right. Thanks, guys. Thanks
Yeah.
for
Thank
coming.
you, Mike.
Yep.
Yeah.